Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Friday, July 18th, around 8:30 at night, and this will be the video covering YieldMax Weekly Paying Dividend Funds ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, there it is, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income ETF. And if it's Friday, you know, hopefully it was payday for you. Let's see, it was not payday for me. I get paid on the 15th, but it was payday for your dividends, right? Reminder, I'm on X. I let you know when videos are coming out. I also let you know 0 DTE trades by Roundhill, but ETF underscore inspector 1 if you're on X. I usually give like a heads up when the premiere is coming out in case you want to be in the live chat. Before I get started, I don't want to forget it. A big shout out and thank you to Alec. Let me find it. I don't want to say the wrong last name. Alec Blanchett, $20. I never would have imagined when I started making videos that somebody would just send $20 just as a thank you. That's crazy. So very much appreciated. Thank you, Alec. All right, you saw the thumbnail. Pretty good mixture of red and green. ULTY itself doesn't seem to ever do anything but go up lately because I want to buy it, so it keeps going up. I did buy a little bit today, not a lot. The little bit of red kind of helps sometimes on Fridays because it's rolling day. You know, we got to close out every option that expires on that week and roll it to the next week. LFGY went down, but only about 4 cents, so it's actually above where it was, I believe, before it paid out the distribution. So we got the full distribution and an increase in our share value all within 2 days. So we'll go a little deeper. I don't know why that popped up. I go after hours, 5:30, 6 o'clock. We download all the trades. You guys know it if you've been here before. Fridays look like this. We start on line 326 and go to 460. So what's that, 124-ish trades, and then LFGY was another 520 down to 573. Not too bad, 53 trades. But these are the nice thing. YieldMax puts all their trades on one page, so you can get lots of things. When I have to make the Roundhill videos, I have to go to each page to download each individual fund's trades. Not sure why my work topics came up there. All right, so we start with the trades. And the video goes a little bit different on Fridays because we don't care too much about next week's options in or out of the money. So we'll get through that part a little faster. But we like to look at the trades. There was a couple peculiar things today that I'm going to highlight. So put some money to work, right? Because every single day we're sitting there adding shares. There was 26 million new shares from yesterday. So that's more money coming in. They got to put it to work. So they bought some MicroStrategy, some Applied Optoelectronics, Reddit. I'll skip that one for a second. ServiceNow and Nebius. Then there was something kind of interesting. We bought Sezzle. I've never heard of them. And then we sold Sezzle all in the same day. We even traded options on Sezzle. We sold them, and we sold calls, bought a put. Then we turned around and sold the puts and bought the calls. Closed it out. Sold the shares. I have no idea what goes into the decision to get into a stock and then immediately get right back out of it. But for our troubles, we made $9,800 buying the shares and then turning around and selling them. But as you'll see when we scroll down, I think we lost about $10,000 with the options. So it was kind of silly, but they know more than we do. So. Okay, basically going to be rolling anything that was expiring on the 18th, starting with AAOI, rolled it to next week, $874,000 credit. I'm going to start calling these credits and debits as compared to profits and losses because this is a credit. We closed these out. Obviously, we did well on the trade if we paid 3 cents to close them because we're selling them for around 75, 85 cents. But there's other times where it's not so obvious. And we may pay a lot to close something out, but we still extracted the time value or the extrinsic value. So this is kind of a combination of closing out and selling new. So it's a credit. It's not necessarily a profit because we're going to have to close these out, and we're going to pay to close them out at some point. So anyway, AMD, this was just adding new options, just putting some new money to work. So that's a debit spread. So those end up costing more up front, whereas selling credit spreads result in a credit. Starting a debit spread starts with a debit, but then you see at the end of at the expiration, the goal is to sell it for more than you bought it for. So $590,000 debit. AppLovin closing out this week, rolling the next week, and we rolled up by $20. $414,000 debit. Coinbase, this one got a little interesting. So we closed out for this week, rolled the next week. Big picture, we paid $481,000, but within it, this is where you're earning your they're earning your management fees. So they didn't just buy to close and then sell to open the new ones. They day traded it. They sold. Let's see where they are right here. All right, so they sold next week's and then turned around and bought them back because they dropped in value so much, and then we're able to sell again. So within it, this would have been a much rougher loss. As you can see, look, paying almost $900,000 and paying $500,000 right there. We're putting out over $1.4 million, closing that out. But it only ended up hurting to the tune of $481 because of some extra in between trades. So we basically rolled it, then closed those out and sold them again at a different strike price to make even more money. All in all, that little in between trade brought in $599,000, so that took a whole lot of the sting out of that trade going against us. So, and there's another one similar to that further down. First Solar closing out this week, rolling the next week. 170s and went to so we rolled up to a higher strike. $540,000 debit. Hood, here's a similar one. Right, this one went against us, so we're paying a lot to close it out. Almost $2.5 million. Rolling to the next week. What did we do here though? But originally we went to 117, and then we bought them back in the same day. So we sold them for $308, bought them for $1.32, and then sold the next strike for $1.92. So that little in between was a $584,000 extra credit. I'll call that a profit, right? Because that's sold it and then bought it back, all completely done. So that was a nice help. That would have hurt a lot worse if they hadn't made that in between move. IonQ, closing out this week, rolling the next week. Paid $870 almost $1,000 to do that. LabVIEW. This is odd, right? We're buying to close. Oh, we got out of LabVIEW, so we're just closing out. So if we would have rolled, we would have made a good money on this one because we're paying 4 to 6 cents to close. Obviously, we would have collected more premium selling a new one, but we didn't sell a new one. So this is just closing out because we sold our shares. So at this point, we have no triple leveraged funds anymore. We've gotten out of TNA, TQQQ, and now out of LabVIEW. Mara, debit of $343,000 on this trade, closing it out. But again, they played a little fun in the middle. They sold 22s, then they bought to close those 22s and sold 21s. So that little move in between netted us $419,000 to the good. So this would have been much more painful had they not made that extra move. MicroStrategy. Here we go again. So this one, we won the trade. Well, it ended up in a nice big credit. $1.6 million rolling the next week, but they didn't stop there. They intraday traded and that turned into an extra $1 million. That's $1 million of the $1.6 million credit that we got, all from their extra trades. So thank you to them for not, just making their rolls on Friday and clocking out early, heading to the beach or something. Nebius, this is just selling new options to go with the new shares that were purchased today, $520,000 credit. Netflix, we sold out of them. We had them for a couple days and we're done with them. So these guys must hate me. They just keep making me change my spreadsheet every other day. Closing them out actually resulted in a positive because Netflix has been going down so much. So we bought to close the calls for pennies, and the puts had a little bit of value to them since the share price dropped. Now, which is ServiceNow, this is a new stock. We just added it today, so we sold new options to go along with it out till next week. $457,000 credit. Oklo, buying to close this week, selling to open next week. $308,000 debit. Reddit, closing out this week. Call it a win, right? Paying 18 cents and selling the new ones for $278. And then they actually bought more Reddit up top. We talked about it, so they a lot more than they already had. Maybe not. This might just be the last position that they had to roll. But sold some more of it altogether, $486,000 credit. Sezzle, this was that one that we bought it, sold options, and then closed it back out. So, yeah, we took a $10,000 loss on the options, and we made a $9,800 profit. So, cost us $200 to play that game. SMCI rolling the next week, paying 10 cents, collecting 73, $212,000 credit. New Scale Power, that's SMR, rolled it next week, had to roll up and out, increased it by $6, cost us $834,000. Tempest AI, credit of $479,000, closing out the 62s for this week, paying 8 and 13 cents. This is pretty nice to roll out or roll up to 64 and still take a almost $500,000 credit, because now we increased it to 64 and collected nearly $1 a share. Tesla, I think this was one of those where they, when the stock dropped, they rolled it down, and then the stock went back up and caused us to get beat on that one. But paid a decent amount on those 322.50s. The 330s weren't so bad. Rolled to 345s and 347.50s for next week, and actually made a profit doing it. $164,000 credit. And finally, Vertiv Holdings, closing out. Let's see. This was one of those debit spreads, so I probably should have highlighted the extra there. So this is the closeout of the debit spread. As you can see, it was a roughly $2.7 million to the good credit in our favor. And then we went ahead and started the next one. So the next one obviously is going to cost us a good bit of money because the debit spread starts out with you putting the money in. But we got to put all the money that we basically profited to work and still put some in to the positive. So that's a pretty good spot to be starting going into the week in a positive on something that costs you more than you bring in credit wise. So all in all, came out to a $700,000 debit or loss on the day for options trading. So we had a negative trading week, which makes sense because all of our stocks kind of went through the roof this week. So we will still be looking good based on the value increases. All right, when we go over and look at the stocks themselves, you're going to see everywhere you see orange, right? That's what the orange meant there. That they correlate with those. Orange under construction, right? These are no longer in play because they're the ones that got rolled. So anything with a 718 got rolled, maybe even some of the 725s. But we're not too concerned with talking about the options. It's Friday, right? We just want to see how things closed out. there's a Sunday video that comes out. It's your guys' favorite. I get basically twice as many views on the week look ahead and payment guesstimate video. So that's the one where we will look line by line. It's a lot more in depth, and we'll see where we stand for each stock, where we want it to trade, how far in or out of the money we sit. So with this being said, we'll just kind of glance through these a little quicker. So AAOI went down 2.6%, closing around 28.63. Obviously, changes in market value are going to be negative when it goes down and positive when it goes up, and we'll just total them all up at the bottom. Maybe we'll hit on the big ones. So we'll say the over $1 million moves. We'll mention them. So it was a $1.2 million decrease in value. AMD dropped 2%, but we don't own any shares, so it doesn't actually have an effect on our value. I mean, everything affects our value because the value of our options fluctuate with the price going up and down, but it's nothing compared to the stocks themselves. So AppLovin up just a little, 0.19%. Not worth talking about. AST Space Mobile up almost 1%. $57.98, almost $58. I don't know why that's highlighted. Coinbase up 2.2%. That increased our value by nearly 1.5 million. First Solar up 1.33%, 175. Robinhood up over 4%. That one really built us up. $3.5 million increase in value. IonQ's been on a tear. Kicking myself. If you watch my videos, much in the past, this is my favorite one to trade. And it was down around like 42, 43 earlier this week, and I was wanting to sell a $41 put, and then it went up, and it went up, and it kept going up, and I ended up not getting to sell one. But for next week, I had one sold for this week that was worthless. 3.7% increase up to 46.51, $2.5 million increase in value. Followed up by LabVIEW, the last triple leverage fund that we had, we no longer have. That's why it's lined out. Went down 6.5%, dropped our value by 2.2, almost 2.3 million. Let's see. So that's where it ended the day, 62.76. Let's see if we got any better for it when we sold it. Yeah. So we sold 64s, high 64s, low, and 63s. So, hey, if they were going to sell it today, they picked a better time than wait until the end. So we actually did not decrease in value by 2.3 million. That would have been had it made it down to that price. So our decrease was actually less than that. Mara Holdings down 2.3%, 1950. They're still up pretty big though. I was selling $14 puts like a week or two ago. $1.5 million decrease. MicroStrategy, this hurt. Down 6.2%. $5.3 million decrease in value. Nebius Group, I still don't know what they do. I don't know if any of you guys trade them. Down 1.68% to 52.79. Netflix dropped over 5%. Another one that hurt us. 2.2 million. Let's see if we got a better price than 12.09 when we sold it. No, we got a worse price. It was actually lower. So it's going to affect us slightly more than that. Oklo up 2.69%, nearly $69, $2.2 million increase in value. Palantir down 0.3%, nothing major. They've had a nice run lately. Reddit up over 4% to 148.24, $2.7 million increase in value. Rigetti up 0.12%, 17.16. SMCI down 1.86%, 51.77. That's almost a $1.2 million decrease. And SMR, New Scale Power, that was our biggest increaser percentage-wise, 7.3%, up over 50, a $5 million increase in value. Tempus AI up 0.5%, almost $61. Tesla up pretty big, 3.2%. We don't have nearly as much as we used to. We sold a lot. I think it was right around that little spat with the most recent spat with the president. But today's increase brought us up by almost 1.2 million. Upstart up over 1%. And Vertiv, this was let's see, down 1.5%. Didn't affect any shares. It did affect us with closing out this debit spread, though. It would have been better if it was up just a little more. But I'm curious, what did we pay to close out those 131s on Vertiv? $0.47. So we didn't really. We must have done it pretty early. No, never mind. They were $1.56 at close yesterday, and we paid 47 cents, so that worked out pretty well. Vista Corp up over 6%, so $3.5 million increase in value. So that all totaled up to that $11.6 million increase in value. So we had one heck of a week as far as value goes. I will total all that up, come up with estimates and things like that on Sunday's video, so make sure you come check it out. Like I said at the beginning, increased by 26 million shares. We're up to over 250 million shares. So when I started covering this fund like 2.5 months ago, we weren't even worth $250 million. Now there's 251 million shares. That's craziness. $1.6 billion. So obviously it went up another 11, 12 million today, plus however much money came in. People are just flooding into this fund. That's why, well, that's not necessarily why we can't get it at a good price. We can't get it at a good price because all these stocks keep on increasing so much that even with paying us out weekly, the value's still going up. So also on the Sunday video, right, I update all the IVs and get us a new 30-day weighted average on our IV because that plays into the payout. Okay, that's it for ULTY. If you're just an ULTY person, thanks for watching. Well, that's not the one. LFGY. Hey, if you don't have anywhere to go, though, you could just wait around, see if you like LFGY and want to get into it, or if you just want to stick around and see how funny the dad joke is, you might want to have to tell it to your kids. Okay, LFGY. So we don't normally go through the trades, but on Friday it's rolling day, so they're closing everything out, rolling it to the next week. So we'll go through them. It's not like we got to get to bed early and get up for work in the morning. Most of us. If you do, I'm sorry. I used to be one of those night shift, weekend shift type of people. All right, closing out our BitDeer, rolling it the next week. There's a credit of 23,000. Coin hurt a lot. So we wish the traders that were trading coin over in ULTY would have intraday traded over here for LFGY too, because that could have taken some of the sting out of this one. But 1.5 million debit on that roll to next week. Cores, right? Just a simple one. Closed them out, rolled to new ones. Not getting a whole lot for them, but $6,800 not profit. I'm going to say credit. Circle, Internet Group, closed them out. That's crazy. We rolled them up by $30. There's so much stinking IV in Circle Internet Group right now that we paid $7 to close out these 222.50s, and we rolled the strike price up $30 and collected more premium than we paid. That's insane. I don't know if any of you guys trade options, but that's absolutely crazy. $74,000 debit overall, though. That basically only came to a negative because they also bought calls just in case it's turned it into a credit spread rather than just a sold covered call. Galaxy paid out $68,000 rolling to next week. Actually, they rolled things that are already for next week just to a higher strike price. Is that a 25.50 up to a 30? I believe. Yep. So obviously, if you close out next week's 25.50 and sell next week's 30, you're gonna pay more than you collect. So GameStop closed out these paying 5 cents. The 23.50 sold 24s. I like that because I think I sold like a 22 put this week. So if they're moving up, then it's getting further away from my put. I'll just keep that free money. $29,000 credit. Robinhood paying out $238,000 on this roll. again, they also added, so because it's going through, they added a long call to the end of it to make it a credit spread. And that's basically where most of the loss came from, because they got almost as much as they paid out. Okay, HUT 8. This one worked out well, paying 6 and 1 cent, closing them out, collecting 47 and 43, plus the extra calls. So if you noticed, ULTY, they buy a put to go with it to protect the shares. LFGY, sometimes they just sell the call, no protection. Other times they sell the call and then buy a further out of the money call. Just make it a credit spread. $139,000, almost $140,000 credit on HUD 8 Corp. Mara was $172,000, almost $173,000 to the good. Closing out those 21s. Jeez, 21s. Selling 21s for next week, so that worked out good. Paying 3 cents, collecting 40. MicroStrategy added $156,000 with the closeout, paying 20 through 40 cents and collecting 360 through 570. Pretty nice. NU Holdings made $1,100, almost $1,200 on the roll. I believe they have already rolled most of what they had. This was just a small portion left behind. Yeah, this was 170 contracts. They've already rolled 4,500 contracts. Getting down to the end, Riot paying 80 cents to close out, 13s for this week, selling 14.50s for next week for 33 cents. So that was a debit of 346,000. And Riot XYZ closing out for $1.57 and selling for $2.15. But they bought. Now what'd they do here? So they closed out calls, and then they started a put spread. So they sold, it's a credit put spread. They sold 73s and bought 71s. So that resulted in a negative 29,000. All right, so for the day, that was a $1.7 million loss trading wise. And it's going to be a loss overall for the week again. It's going to be an increase as far as values, not a lot though. So this is going to be a roughly, nothing major week. I think we can probably, before I even make the video, it's going to be in that same range where we've been getting our payments. So BitDeer down 0.3%. Let's see if we even have anything that hit the million mark. Yeah, we have some. Okay. CleanSpark down 1.5% to 1278. Coinbase up 2.2%. That helped. 670,000. Core Scientific down 0.89. Circle Internet Group took a big loss, but fortunately they sold a whole lot of the shares that they had in them about a week ago. Or maybe I'm confusing them and ULTY. So generally losing almost 5% results in $1 million losses, but not when you only have 6.7 million in it. Big winner over here was Galaxy Digital, going up over 4%. As you can see, though, not making a huge impact because Galaxy is only 1.76% of our holdings. So that's the thing. Another difference. LFGY is not very evenly allocated, where when you look at the percentages on ULTY, basically they run from like 3 to 6%. Whereas these, you got things that are around 1%, and you got things that are around 17%. So it's not a very even allocation. I can tell you, nothing can go over 25%. If you listen to any of the interviews, you've heard them talk about that. Those are rules for ETFs. They can't have a concentration greater than 25% in one stock. All right, GameStop down 0.5% to 23.28. Robinhood up over 4%. That helped about $500,000 increase in value. HUD 8 Corp down 2.25% to 21.62. IBIT, that's the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, lost 1.4%, taking the value down by $240,000. Mara down 2.3%, another $355,000 to the bad. MBTX went down, and that actually works out for both their positions here. They've got a credit call spread, so they needed to end up under 295 to have those expire worthless. What do we do here? Yep. And then they have a debit put spread, which they're betting that it goes down because 230 is what they have purchased. So it's pretty far out of the money right now. We want that, well, they want that for that trade to win, to go down quickly. Mercado Libre up 2.66%. Back over 2,400 again. MicroStrategy down 6.2%. This one brought them down by 1.2 million in value. Still a nice high price though. I'm sure if there's any people that follow Misty, right, that's a high price. NU Holdings, the big loser over here, 6.9%, but they just don't have a high concentration in it, so it still dropped the value by less than 500,000. Nvidia up down 1/3%. Nothing major. Opera down 2%, 1789. PayPal up 0.4%, 7417. Riot up almost 4%, almost a $400,000 increase in value, and Block was up nearly 3%. So that all totaled to a decrease in value of $1.2 million. The fund is now assets under management is 185 million. That'll be plus whatever money came in today as far as new shares. From yesterday, there was an increase of 50,000, bringing us up to 4,525,000 outstanding shares. Okay, I would venture to guess that more money came in today, more shares, just for the fact that if we lost money trading and we lost value from our shares, then let me think about this. Yeah, then those two things, when everything updates tomorrow, would create an even lower NAV than 4090. Still trying to think this through. I don't know. We'll see. I'll download everything tomorrow, and we'll talk about it on Friday. So, that's what it is. Yeah, man, I'm being dumb. So I'm actually guessing they bought back some shares. I'm guessing that that's going to be a negative when I download it tomorrow, because that would be because those two the results of everything today would decrease tomorrow's NAV. So for it to be trading at 4110 and be decreasing from 4090, if you watch these, you know they always end up within a couple cents. So the only way you're going to increase that NAV is reduce the number you're dividing by. So I bet you that's going to be a negative. But I've been wrong before. Wouldn't be the first time. Okay, that's everything for ULTY and LFGY. I got a dad joke for you. But before I do, as always, thank you, everybody. I don't know what happened. If you watched yesterday's video, I had it all set up for a premiere, and then I clicked on it to get into it, and it was already playing, and it wasn't set as a premiere, so it didn't let us chat, and it really threw me off. I kind of look forward to talking to you guys in these videos, so hopefully I get it right tonight. But okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the likes and shares. I get the updates all the time. It tells me however many hundreds of shares and comments. I try to get back to every single comment. One thing I did want to mention, I'm sure most of you have dropped off at this point. There's a weird thing about it when you comment and then, let's say I reply. If you reply under a comment rather than writing a new comment, I don't end up getting any kind of notification for it, and it even doesn't show up when I look for unresponded things. I have to actually search for responded comments to find those new ones. So if you're trying to get my attention, I would write a separate comment as opposed to a reply. I know that kind of defeats the purpose if we're having a conversation about that, but I don't know what to do. All right. Joke of the day. I went to McDonald's last night and I ate a kid's meal. The parents were not happy with me. Okay. Have a great weekend. Got a lot more coming for you. Saturdays, I make my personal trades video that covers everything I traded throughout the week, and also my dividends. I don't know what else is in there. And then I also make the video for, I cover 7 YieldMax individual income funds. Where are they? Yep. AMDY, AMZY, APLY, FBY, GOOY, MSFO, and NFLY. So I make that video. It's just a once a week on Saturday. Let you know how they made out the past week and let you know how everything looks for the week going forward. And I make guesstimates for whichever funds are going to be declaring that upcoming week. And then, of course, Sunday, everybody's favorite video is the ULTY LFGY week look ahead and distribution guesstimate. So I will catch you many more times this weekend. All right, good night.